السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله. والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء وسيد المرسلين وشفيع المذنبين سيدنا ونبينا بالقاسم محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. والصلاة والسلام على أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين المنتجبين لا سيما مولانا وسيدي صاحب العصر والزمان روحي وأرواح العالمين له الفداء وأجل الله تعالى فرجه الشريف ولعنة دائمة على أعدائهم ومنكر فضائلهم من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين. أما بعد رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. For the hastening of the advent of our 12th Imam, Imam Al-Hujjah, one salawat upon Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. Brothers and sisters in Islam, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We first off begin by extending our congratulations to all of the brothers and sisters who are here tonight and to our 12th and living Imam and awaited Savior, Imam Al-Hujjah, as we gather to mark the birth anniversary of the 4th Imam of Ali Muhammad, Sayyid As-Sajjadeen wa Zain al-Abideen, Imam Ali ibn al-Hussein, alayhum as-salatu was-salam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. And on this blessed evening, we ask Allah to accept this act of worship from us this evening, to give us the ability to pay our respects to Imam As-Sajjad at his grave in Jannatul Baqi in Medina, and that we also are able to benefit from the shafaat, the intercession of the 4th Imam on the day of resurrection. For the acceptance of our du'as through the person of the 4th Imam, one salawat upon Muhammad and Ali Muhammad. As we continue in these three celebrations in the month of Sha'aban, as we recall, we marked the birth of Sayyid al-Shuhada on Tuesday night. Last night we dedicated it to the birth of Abul Fadl al-Abbas. And tonight we look towards the 4th Imam, Imam Zain al-Abideen alayhi salam, and to glean a little bit about his life and his teachings, and some of the things that he has left behind for us as believers. According to the scholars, his birth was on the 5th of Sha'aban in the year 38 after the Hijrah. And according to the narrations, although there's a difference in the actual martyrdom anniversary, it was within the month of Muharram in the year 95. So he lived for about 57 years. Obviously, within that 57 years, the event of Karbala is what we know him most importantly by. And when you look in the literature, we see that obviously he had a life before Karbala, he had a life after Karbala. But we usually tend to focus on those few days of the event of Karbala, of the day of Ashura. And unfortunately, one of the characteristics that we attribute to the Imam, mostly within the poetry, within the eulogies that we recite, is we refer to him as Bimare Karbala, as this man who was sick in Ashura, on the day of Ashura. And without a doubt, we believe that he was sick preceding the day of Ashura, and obviously thereafter. But unfortunately, our entire impression of this Imam is of a sickly young man who is in bed and who cannot do anything for himself. Whereas in the reality is that our historians mention that other than the day of Ashura and that time frame within those few days, he never felt sick after the event of Ashura. So all the time in Kufa, in Sham, in Medina, he was a healthy young man. And even that period of illness in Karbala was for a wisdom. There was a deep philosophy why Allah had him fall sick. One of them might be that for the fact that had he been healthy, that he would have had to answer the call of his father when Sayyid al-Shuhada asked for help on the day of Ashura. But him being sick, he was absolved of that obligation of going to fight to defend. And so we have to get it out of our minds that he was a sick Imam who was, this person who was on the bed and who was in a fever the whole life. No, it was a short day in his existence, and we shouldn't let that one day or few days overshadow his entire 57 years of existence and the powerful lessons that we can learn from Imam Zainul Abidin alayhi salatu wassalam. Tonight I want to continue in the discussion that we began a few nights ago. And for those who recall, we mentioned that there are two ways to know an individual. One is by what others say about them. And so we looked at the different lines of Ziyarat Waratha from our sixth Imam. Last night we focused on another Ziyarat of Abul Fadl Abbas from our sixth Imam. We talked about the lines of Ziyarat Nahiya about Abul Fadl from the 12th Imam. But the second way that I talked about on the very first night of how we can know a person is through their own speech, through their own words. And when the person speaks as Imam Ali says, then you really know how that person is. And tonight when we want to reflect on Zainul Abidin alayhi salam, we are obligated to go to the book of supplications, the book of du'as that we have left from our fourth Imam, which is known as Sahifatu Sajjadiyah. This compilation of du'as, of supplications, which are in reality the Imam speaking to Allah. And really other than the Quran, or secondary only to the Quran. If the Quran is Allah's words to humanity, then the most important book after the Quran, which should be in our libraries at home, and maybe we don't have libraries, so on our smartphones, the next most important book should be the dua book of our fourth Imam, Imam Zainul Abidin alayhi salam. Because we see, and we'll see this tonight when I do a very brief analysis of dua and the philosophy and some of the supplications of our fourth Imam, that the supplication, the dua that we have within our religion, within our tradition, is something then other than what we tend to think about it as being. You know, sometimes we imagine a dua, a supplication that we make, whether it be dua komel, or we make a dua if we're looking for a spouse, or for, to have children, for a couple to conceive children, or for a job, or for better health, or whatever. Sometimes we think that a dua, this supplication that we make, is a prayer to Allah for Him to intercede in a metaphysical way, to change, unalter our circumstances. And definitely at one level that is true. When we make a dua, we are hoping that Allah will change and alter things in the physical world through the metaphysical to allow us to accomplish certain things. But at the same time, what we realize when we look at the hadith and the verses of the Quran is that the dua is not a thing to do that Allah will automatically change things without us making a change in what we're looking for. For example, a person, a young man or a young woman makes a dua to Allah that they want to get married. They're looking for a pious spouse. Is it enough just to make a dua and then all of a sudden Allah will send somebody to that individual to marry? Obviously not. But that dua is a precursor for Allah maybe opening up our hearts to be able to work in the way to find a spouse, through make avenues available to that young man or woman to be able to use to find an individual that they want to marry. When we make dua for wealth, we don't expect to make a dua on Laylatul Qadr, and then next morning we open up our app on our smartphone and we see $1 million in our bank account because we made a dua the night before. It just doesn't work like that in the way of Allah. As the hadith says, that Allah does not like to do things except in their natural means of progression. So yes, Allah could deposit $1 million in our account. It's not a big deal for Allah. Allah could deliver a spouse at your doorstep ready to get married, but Allah doesn't work in that way. Allah uses different ways for our du'as to be fulfilled and accomplished and answered. And so when we look at the concept and philosophy of dua, and there's a lot to say, I don't want to go into all of the hadith and the philosophy of the supplication. Maybe we'll leave that for another night. But we have to appreciate that the dua, at one level, we're asking Allah to change the physical realm. But at the same time, the dua should be that we are looking to make a change within ourselves. That when we make a dua, that we are putting a thought within our own mind that we now have to develop and fulfill. It's like the dua in Ramadan. You know, in a few short weeks we'll begin the month of Ramadan. And in dua iftata, there's a passage that we recite, which begins, Allahumma adkhil ala ahli al-qubur as-surur, ala ahli qubur as-surur, Allahumma aghni kulla faqir, Allahumma ashbi kulla ja'in. And we go on for 12 different things. We ask Allah, Allahumma aghni kulla faqir. Oh Allah, make every person who is a faqir, who is a needy person, free of need. Or Allah, feed the hungry, clothe the people who don't have clothing. Allah won't reveal or send down clothing to them or food, but what He will do is put a thought in our head and give us the opportunity to donate to causes in which we are able to fulfill all of these things that we ask for other people in the blessed month of Ramadan. So tonight I want to look at just two themes from Sahifa Sajjadiyah. And if you haven't looked at the Sahifa yet, please take some time to read it. It's online for free download. It's a compilation of 54 du'as. And they vary in length. They're not very short, but some of them are very long. So you have du'as like Dua Makarimul Akhlaq, which can take an hour to recite. But then you have the dua asking for rain, which takes 3-4 minutes to recite. And you have all the different supplications in the middle. Prayers for a parent for their children. Du'as for children to recite for their parents. Dua at times of difficulty. Dua when you see the new moon. All of these different supplications for different times within our lives. Tonight I want to look at two supplications, and even within those two, just two short lines to show us how the du'as are not just a plea to Allah to make a metaphysical change in our lives, but rather for you and I to step up and plan an agenda of change within our own lives to make our own lives better on the face of this earth. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. The first dua that I want to just briefly touch on tonight is dua number 30 from the Sahifa Sajjadiyah. And dua number 30 is an interesting supplication. It's a dua to make when you have a lot of debts to pay, when you have mortgages and economic challenges. And we know that in the environment that we live in today, especially within Alberta, but all over the world, that the economic situation has changed drastically around the world. People who had jobs just a few short weeks or months ago have lost their jobs. People are on unemployment for months, for years. They can't find employment. People have mortgages to pay. People have car loans to pay. You have, tuition from university you're trying to pay. We have all of these burdens on our heads. And the fourth Imam shows us in dua number 30 of a way to get out of the debt that we're in, a way to get out of this financial burden of owing other people, creditors, debts that we have sometimes an inability to pay. But one of the things that we appreciate, first of all, is that we know that debts don't always come expectedly. Sometimes we have to go into debt. We have to have a mortgage. Nobody can afford, or very few people can afford to buy a home with cash. It's sometimes very difficult, if not impossible, to buy a home with cash. Maybe you can buy a car with cash, that's not a problem. But to buy a big investment like a home, $500,000, $1 million, not many people have that ability. So many times we get into debt because of the fact that we have needs within our life. We need a home. We need a car. Our children need education. We need food. We need all of these things. So when we get into debt for those issues, that's not a problem. It's a respectable debt, we can say. But a problem comes is when we don't look at our need, but we look at our greed. Right? We have needs. Yes, we have to have those. But what about the greed aspect of life? People want to have more. My brother buys a Mercedes C-Class, so I need to buy the S-Class. He buys the S-Class, I need to buy whatever is higher than that. He buys a Jaguar, I have to buy this. He buys a BMW, I have to buy a better car. My sister moves into a new home, 6,000 square feet. Well, I have to be one up over her and buy a bigger home. It's not about what I need, it's what I greed. And this is where that problem comes. Not only within our lives and the fact that now we have greater debts to carry, but also the fact that now we have a greater religious obligation. Because we know that even religiously, Islam gives us direction in this area. Meaning that if it's a matter of need, go ahead, purchase the thing, use your credit card, get the mortgage, pay the interest to the bank. But if it is a matter of greed, then there's a problem. If that big 4K TV, ultra high definition, is not a need, it's a greed, and you put it on your credit card and you're paying interest, that interest is haram according to the ulama, according to the scholars, because that's not a need for your life. It's a greed. It's something you can do without. It's something that you don't have to have. So we have to draw a line between the need and the greed. I'm not saying that we live the life of a poor person, of a pauper. No, but we have to live within limits, and we see that Islam gives us these limits of how to lead a life and how to ensure our need doesn't exceed the greed factor. And when we look at our society today in Canada, just today I read a statistic from 2015 that the average Canadian, they said, has 165% of debt on their head. Meaning that for every dollar of disposable income that we have, the average Canadian for every dollar of disposable income, they're in debt for $1.65. And that doesn't seem like much, $1.65. But if you're in debt, if your disposable income is $10,000, that means you're $16,000 in debt. So that extra $6,000 obviously is money you don't have to pay your credit card, to pay your bills. And some of the stats say that $1.65 that we're in debt doesn't include our mortgage payments for our homes. So you can imagine what kind of a debt level Canadians are carrying on their credit cards, for vacations, for dinners out, for beautiful purses that our ladies like to buy for $300-400 for a handbag, or dresses which might cost $300, which they'll wear to a function once, and then their husband will say, or their husband will be told, well, I can't wear the same outfit again to the majlis because I wore it for last night's khushali. So now I have to go buy another outfit. And this goes on and on and on. And it's not only ladies, I'm not going to pick on them, because us men, as we say in English, the only difference between men and boys is the price of our toys, right? We want smartphones, the new iPhone comes out, we have to get it right away. The new tablet is out, the new this is out, the new that is out. And our children might play with their little toys in the sandbox, but as we grow older, us men, our toys become more and more expensive. And so all of us have to realize that many times we're living far beyond our means, far beyond our needs. And so the few lines I want to share from the fourth Imam where he talks about this shows us that it's not about asking Allah for some hidden help, for Allah to fill our bank account with money, for Allah to deposit in our safety deposit box some gold. No, this comes down to you and I reading the du'as and realizing that the du'a should change our outlook on life, should change how I do things in my day-to-day life. The Imam says in one passage, he says, وَحْجُبْنِي عَنِ السَّرْفِ وَالْإِزْدِيَادِ. Prevent me from extravagance and excess. Allow me to control my spending habits. Right? I don't want to go to the level of being extravagant. If I need one pair of pants, buy the one pair. If I need one pair of runners for track and field or for sports, why go and buy 3? If my wife needs one purse, why does she have to go and buy 3 purses just because they're on sale? No, excess and extravagance means that you buy what you need. If you need 4 of whatever, buy it. But if you only need 1, just because it's on sale, buy 3 for the price of 1, or 3, get 2 free. Well, if you don't need 3, why buy it? If you need 1 bar of soap, even if they're on sale, if you buy a 20-pack, why? We have to live within our means and not be extravagant in our excessive spending. And obviously these are just examples. I mean, we can hash them out and go into the details. But the point being is that we should never be extravagant or excessive in our spending. And this is one of the keys the Imam is showing us. If we have debt, if we look at our mortgage, our bill payments, our credit card statement at the end of the month, and we see how much we owe and the interest that we're paying with a 22 or 29% interest rate, then we realize if we're not being excessive and extravagant, we don't have that problem. And then the Imam says, وَقَوِّنِّي بِالْبَذْلِ وَالْإِقْتِسَادِ. Put me on the course of generous spending and on moderation. Right? It's all about being moderate in our spending, not leading a life to catch up with the Joneses. Because my neighbor has it, I have to do it as well. Because my family member went on vacation to the Bahamas, now I have to go, for a longer vacation, for a more elaborate vacation. No, it's not about keeping up with the Joneses. It should be a matter of living a life of humility, living a life of modesty, living a life of where we're not going into excesses and wasting money and getting into that rut of being, indebted to the banker at the end of the day. He then says, وَعَلِمْنِي حُسْنَ التَّقْدِيرِ. He asks Allah to teach him how to have excellent distribution. Allah should teach us how to be good financial planners, asking Allah to help us balance our books, how we should live a life of moderation. And the Imam goes on to other passages. I don't want to mention them tonight, but he gives us some indicators in the latter part of the dua of ways that we can actually control our spending habits, who to hang out with, who not to be with, how to lead our life, where to go, where not to go, to avoid window shopping. All of these things are in the dua. They're in other hadith as well. And all of these things would put us on the course of moderation within our life. And then he says, hold back from me through your gentleness from squandering my assets. Just because you have $100 in your pocket, or just because you have X amount in your bank, it doesn't mean you have to go and spend it. It doesn't mean just because you have it. People say, well, this money's burning a hole in my pocket. I have to go out and spend it. I saw this, I saw that, I needed it, I want that, I want that. The Imam is saying, no, control it. Control your spending. Just because you have extra money, it doesn't mean that you have to spend it. And if you have to spend it, maybe come to the mosque and give it to the mosque. They have expenses. There's no business that the Jamaat is running. So why not give it back to the mosque? You'll get reward from Allah in the next world, and you'll get reward from Allah in this world. So it's a double benefit from Allah. Allah will not waste when you give it in His way. He'll give you a multiple reward back. And this is not only a theory that people can, speculate upon. This is a practice that I'm sure many of us have seen in our lives, that when we come and give $10, Allah gives us back not only 10%, not 50%, but maybe 100% return, or maybe 1,000% return on our investment. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Let me end this first part with a very beautiful hadith. And every time I read this hadith, I think that this particular tradition should be written in gold and embossed on our homes. We should write this hadith everywhere, wherever we want to spend money. Those who run Islamic organizations and institutions and Jamaats, this hadith should be on page 1 of your manifesto when you come into office. It's a very powerful hadith from the Imams of Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam. The Imam says this, إِذَا أَرَادَ اللَّهُ بِعَبْدٍ خَيْرًا. When Allah wants goodness for His servant, أَلْهَمَهُ الْإِقْتِصَادِ وَحُسْنَ التَّدْبِيرِ. He inspires us with two things: balance in our spending and good fiscal planning. Right? Good fiscal planning and balance in our spending. Sometimes we come into a position and we see that our books have $40,000, $50,000 in them. And we think, well, how can I spend this money? How can I, use this money? We don't think that there may be a year to come or a future where that balance will be empty. We have investments and GICs and RSPs and all of these things. And rather than thinking, how can we use it for the betterment, we think, well, how can I spend this money right away? Because it's burning a hole. I want to use it. I want to get it out of the accounts, get it out there and use the money. And sure, we have to use money where we have to use it. There's no doubt that we shouldn't just save for the sake of spending. But Imam shows us that we have two things, and that we should ask Allah for this: balance in our spending, so use money when you need to use it, not because you have to use it, and good fiscal planning. At home we do this. We get our paycheck and more or less we'll balance, and we'll make sure that we're not overspending unless we have to for emergencies. We have to maintain the same criteria for our institutions, for our organizations, our international, Muslim organizations, that we plan our future out. Not we just have money today, we spend it because we know we will get money tomorrow. We don't know whether money will come through the doors tomorrow or not. And so Imam says when Allah wants good for us, He gives us that tawfiq, that ability, that providence, that we can sit and plan our finances out. And then he says, وَجَنَّبَهُ سُوَ التَّدْبِيرِ وَالْإِسْرَافِ, and He keeps us away from bad, mismanagement of our funds and from wasting and squandering our wealth. So this is something that all of us have to think about, whatever strata that we're at our family level, at our community level, at the national, international level. We have to be concerned about the assets that we have at our disposal. Because although for many people money is a renewable resource, people can gain more money, millionaires make more money, but our institutions aren't like that. Our religious institutions don't just print money. They don't get an unlimited flow of donations that come in. These things are limited, they're finite, and so we have to make the best use of them as the hadith of the Imams alayhum salam show us. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. The second theme that I want to talk about very briefly, from the Sahifa Sajjadiyah, again, a book of not just asking Allah for things, but putting thoughts within our head of how we can change our own situation, how we can make things better for ourselves, is dua number 33. Dua number 33 of the Sahifa is an interesting one. It's called the dua of istikhara. Istikhara, we all have this thing. We go to the Maulana, do an istikhara for me. I want to get married, do an istikhara. I want to buy a business, do an istikhara. I want to cross the road, do an istikhara. I want to go to the bathroom, do an istikhara. People do this, unfortunately. I've seen people, should I go to that office or not? Let me take out an istikhara, should I go there or not? In fact, I've seen people in our world, in our Muslim world, who, when a person comes to propose to their child for marriage, they'll do an istikhara. If it comes out bad, they'll say, see, it came out bad. Allah doesn't want you to marry that person. If it comes out good, the same parents won't let their child get married. They'll come up with some excuse. And these children, these are real life examples. They're 40, 50 years old today. And guess what? They aren't married. Why? Because every time a suitor came who was reasonable, who was respectable, the father would do the istikhara, and he would use that as the excuse for why their child can't get married. So what is the istikhara? We do it all the time. We ask people to do it. And now, thanks to technology, you can download the app on your smartphone. You can hit the button to do the istikhara. It gives you the reply. It gives you a verse of the Quran, whether it's good, whether it's bad, the commentary of the verse. So now you don't even have to go to the Maulana. You can do it on your, do it yourself, istikharas. But what is an istikhara really? This word comes from the word khair. So when we say istikhara, we're saying we're seeking goodness. We're seeking something good. We're seeking a reply of something good from Allah. But keep in mind that good is a very relative term. What does it mean when I say I want what is best for me? Do I mean I want what is best for me only in the life of this world, and I'm not worried about the akhirat? Because if that's what I'm looking at, then there's a lot of things that I should have in this world which would be a benefit for me now, but would be a huge detriment in the world to come. Right? So many things we could think about in our mind which are good for us in this world, but not the world to come. So when I say I want khair, I want goodness for myself, I have to be forward thinking, not just this world of 50, 60, 70 years, but that goodness I'm asking for from Allah, it should be far reaching into the world to come. There's a hadith that comes to us from our sixth Imam, Imam Jafar As-Sadiq alayhi salatu wassalam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. In which a companion comes to him and asks him the same question. Do an istikhara for me. Give me this istikhara. Give me the answer. What should I do? And the Imam doesn't do it automatically. He asks him a question about what do you understand about good and bad? How do you understand these two relative terms? And the Imam gives him a question. He says, if you were to lose your right hand, your right arm was to be severed, is that good or bad for you? The man says, well, of course that would be bad, to lose my hand. Where is any goodness in that, right? You're an amputee, you don't have a hand, you can't do a lot of things. The Imam says, but what if I were to tell you that by you losing your right hand, you would have not done a sin that would have landed you in hell forever? Then you would say, well, that's good if I lose my hand in this world, but I'm guaranteed paradise in the next world. Well, that's where the good is. So we have to understand good and bad in this light. When we say, do an istikhara for me, what are we asking? We're saying we want only the good of this world. Are we thinking about the world to come? Are we thinking about maybe that khair in this world, the goodness in this world, that are we sure that it won't come with a difficulty? Because many times, good things are hard to come by. It's not always easy to do good. It's not always the easy path to get to paradise. So you might do an istikhara and it might come out good, so to speak. But that doesn't mean that you'll have no challenges in that path. A young lady might do an istikhara for marriage. It might come out good. Maybe her husband, God forbid, would be one who abuses her mentally, physically, verbally. She'll say, well, where is the khair? Where is the goodness in this? But maybe if she can change his akhlaq, she can bring him back to the path, then there's goodness in that. Because she was able to change a human being. Now, I'm not saying that a woman should put up with that, because women should not put up with abuse in the home. But I'm saying as an example, if that were to happen, she might say, well, where was the goodness? Maulana did an istikhara, it said it was good. And now I'm facing all of these challenges. Well, we have to be forward thinking. Maybe the good is in the world to come if you bear the difficulties, or you work through them in the legal means to get to the outcome. So the gist of this is that don't put our hopes on this traditional form of istikhara. Yes, it is a religious method to seek an understanding. But at the same time, we have an intellect to use. And let me share with us a hadith before I go to the one or two lines from the dua before we conclude. This hadith tells us that before we do an istikhara, I'll just read the translation. The hadith says that when one of you wants to perform a certain task, you want to get married to a certain person, you want to start a business, you want to go on vacation, you want to do something major, not a minor thing. Should I cross the street? Should I buy this or should I buy that? No, something which is a very important step in life. If you want to do it, the hadith says, before you do it, don't ask others for advice until you ask Allah for advice. Don't ask others until you ask Allah. The Sahaba says, and how do we seek advice from Allah? We can't go to Allah, knock at His door and say, give me some advice, God. So the reply comes, start by asking Allah for what is good for you, and then ask the people. Meaning take advice from the people. Make dua to Allah for the best, and then ask people for advice. Because he says, when you begin by asking Allah, and then you go to ask the people, Allah will allow His answer to flow from the mouths of those people whom you ask. Allah will allow the answer to come from the people that you ask from. So if a young lady wants to get married, she shouldn't jump to do the istikhara. Her parents shouldn't go and just do the istikhara and then base the response on the proposal on that one, yes or no, from the istikhara. What they should do is, yes, consult Allah. Ask Allah, guide me to what is best. But then you have to do consultation of other people. Ask people for what is their opinion on a certain topic, right? We can't just presume that, okay, Allah is going to reveal an answer to us from the heavens. No, Allah will actually give us the response through His creations. Thank you. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. And so the first stage in istikhara, seeking the best from Allah, is yes, we ask Allah for the dua, ask Allah to guide us to what is right. But then stage number 2 is to go to people who know about that situation. If you're getting married, you have to go and find out about the possible spouse, Are they a good person? What do they do? Who are they? What is their education? All of these things. And there's so many different levels to go through. But just to say, well, the answer came, yes, good, marry, or no, don't marry, then this is where a lot of our problems in our communities we fall into, because people pin their hopes on an answer which they haven't done their own prerequisites and their own homework. And so let me just mention the 3 lines from the dua of the 4th Imam, and we'll end for tonight. Where in dua number 33 of the Sahifa, where the Imam is asking for the best, asking for khair, he begins by saying, Allahumma inni astakhiruka bi-ilmik. Oh Allah, I ask you from the best in your knowledge, because Allah has knowledge over everything. And we're asking Allah for the best of what is within His knowledge for ourselves. فَصَلِّ عَلَى مُحَمَّدْ وَآلِهِ وَقْضِي لِي بِالْخِيَرَةِ. He says, so bless Muhammad and the family and decree for me the best. Let whatever is best happen to me. Sometimes what is best for me might not be what I expected. Right? Sometimes what is best for me might be for me to have an accident. Because maybe I've had a whole record of speeding and reckless driving on the highways. And that accident is khair because it might save me from a death, or it might save me from killing somebody else. So it might not be good that I have an accident, but it's better than another outcome that might happen to me. So we ask Allah for the best in His decree, keeping in mind that what is best might not necessarily always be a garden of roses. It might not always be what we expect to happen to us, that we have a smooth course in life. And then the Imam says, وَأَلْهِمْنَا مَعْرِفَةَ الْإِخْتِيَارِ. He says, inspire us with the knowledge to choose the best. And this is where we say that it's not only to do the istikhara and get the answer from the Maulana, yes or no, do it or don't. It's that we take guidance from other people. Consult other people, ask them. Get advice, get differences from other people, and then make up our decision. But if we trust in Allah, if we begin by asking Allah for the best, especially through dua number 33 of our 4th Imam, if we follow the prerequisites, we make the dua, and then we go forth to ask people for their opinions, and they give us what we should do. We weigh the pros and cons, and then we make a decision. Then we should appreciate that whatever advice we have taken, whatever they have told us, and whatever happens is for the best. If it means that we have a problem-free life, that is best for us. If it means that we have some ups and downs and hurdles in our life, and we get sick, or we have an illness in the family, or we lose a family member, or we have an accident, then appreciate that that is what is best for us at that particular time in our life. And keep the big picture in mind, the goal, which is obviously Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That life will not always be a bed of roses. It won't always be smooth sailing. But definitely, as we say that there is always, as they say that every dark cloud has a silver lining. And we just have to find that silver lining, and we have to rely that Allah will bring that lining out for us. We close on this blessed evening as we mark the birth of Sayyid As-Sajjadeen, Imam Zainul Abidin, and we ask Allah to accept this act of worship from us tonight. We ask Allah that we are able to delve deep into Sahifa Sajjadiyah, that we are able to pattern our lives after the du'as of our 4th Imam. We ask Allah to be able to be of those who are able to balance our finances, that we're able to control our spending, that we're able to live a life of moderation just as our 4th Imam has encouraged us to lead. We ask Allah to give us the best of this world and the best of the akhirat, and to keep us away from the punishment of the fire of hell. We ask Allah to forgive us our sins, keep us all on the path of Muhammad and Ali Muhammad, and we ask Allah to give the thawab of this majlis tonight to all of the marhameen, the deceased from our family, our community, our friends, the ulama, the shuhada. As we had heard at the beginning that our community member Kaniz Mavani, her sister-in-law passed away. Let's remember her tonight in our Surah Fatiha. And also for all of those who were killed in Baghdad over the last day or two, the 100 or so people who were killed, and all of those who have been killed all over the world, whether they be in Iraq, in Syria, in Afghanistan, in Pakistan, in many other parts of the world. Let's remember all of them tonight with Surah Al-Mubarakatul Fatiha. Before that, one loud salawat upon Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad.